collaboration with the Cyprus Mail. This is the Cyprus News Digest with Rosie Charalambous.
Coming up on the programme this week, the government plans to reform the Cyprus postal services.
For sure we have excess number of employees, or we have different skills from what we need, because basically if the number of letters is decreasing, it means, for example, that you need less people, you need less postmen. So you need people with different skills that they can actually offer the different services we will offer in the future.
Italy pledges to rebuild the towns and villages destroyed in the recent earthquake.
Our intention is to recover all the materials, so the stones, all the pieces that will allow us to rebuild.
And Cyprus Comic Con 2016 is bringing international stars to Nicosia this weekend.
We have Grand Maester Pycelle from Game of Thrones, who's acted by Julian Wyatt Glover, a long-standing, very famous British actor. He's been in James Bond, he stood as Indiana Jones' nemesis in The Last Crusade, he's been in Star Wars as Darth Vader's general. He's incredible. He's also starred in Doctor Who. There's nothing that he hasn't been in, it seems, when you look at his repertoire.
The government has taken a decision to make the Cyprus Post an autonomous entity. Is this the first step towards privatisation, or is it simply something that hopefully will make a service that is perhaps not as efficient as it should be, rather more agreeable to its customers? Joining us is the Minister of Communications and Transport, Marios Dimitriadis. So what is the idea behind this, Marios?
Let me start by saying that postal services nowadays are a service which can be offered by anybody. So postal services in Cyprus have been liberalized in line with the other countries within the European Union. So postal services now, even though it is a department of the ministry, it does face competition from the private sector.
But we don't have private post offices on every street corner. All we have is the services offered by intercity taxis to deliver parcels or envelopes.
Actually, during the last years, a number of companies, they have started offering part of the postal services, like delivery of parcels, parcels that come from abroad. And these companies, basically, they do concentrate on the profitable part of this business. Now, I do believe that postal services cannot compete with them under the current structure they have. Actually, to be honest, this is an effort which started more than 20 years ago to make postal services more autonomous. Unfortunately, for a number of reasons, it has not proceeded. So we commissioned a study, and this study basically came up with the result that we need to proceed with making the postal services autonomous, and the method they propose is to convert them to a private company with the sole shareholder being the state. Now, is this the first step towards privatization? I would say that it is a step into making postal services more autonomous and being able to compete. This is what it is at the moment.
Well, people will say, is there a future anyway, anywhere, for postal services? We all send emails today. Most things are done electronically. I'm sure that the share of the market of people actually sticking stamps on envelopes is way, way down.
Yes, I mean, the number of letters being sent obviously has been decreasing, and it will decrease even more in the future. Traditional postal services, they have been decreasing. So what is happening now all over the world, post offices are offering a range of additional services that have to do with the servicing of citizens. This is what we do in Cyprus as well. Since last year, the 4 main postal offices we have, they also serve like one-stop shops, government one-stop shops, where somebody can renew their licenses, issue a health card, and do all sort of services you can do through the one-stop shops. So this is an expansion of the existing services we offer. Also, it is a fact that services like sending a letter, they have decreased and they will decrease even more in the future. However, during the last years, we're witnessing an increase in things like electronic trade. And actually, this is part of the new strategy of the European Union as well to expand electronic trade. And postal services, they can enhance their services in this area and increase their revenues. And this is an area where we indeed face competition, and that's why we need the flexibility to be able to face this competition. So what we're looking forward to is basically smaller range of services, but different services from what we offer now, and concentration on services that they can be expanded.
And can make money, because one of the problems is that the Postal Service has been losing money. It's got, some 600 to 700 employees who are civil servants. That's a big thing here, because the benefits accruing if you're a civil servant means that that's a huge drain on the actual post office. Correct me if I'm wrong. So if you're going to fine-tune the service, does that mean you're going to stop employing more people until the numbers are commensurate with what is feasible? Or how are you going to do it?
I think there are two issues there. The first issue is that for sure we have excess number of employees, or we have different skills from what we need, because basically if the number of letters is decreasing, it means, for example, that you need less people, you need less postmen. So you need people with different skills that they can actually offer the different services we will offer in the future. The other thing is that the reality is that the people we employ, especially for some of the simple services, simple tasks, they are much more expensive than the corresponding people in the private sector. So the objective is via this new organization in the future to be able to employ people from the private sector as well, so that the efficiency of this organization improves, but also employ people with different skill sets. So this will be done through the new organization, but as you understand, it will be done gradually.
Like most changes to our sort of government and semi-government organisations. But how on earth, do tell me, Marios, are you going to get this plan past the unions? It sounds very similar to the plan for CETA, which has now been sort of up in the air for 3 years? And we're not getting any closer. So why do you think it'll work with the post office if it hasn't worked anywhere else?
It will. I do believe it will work in the sense that we're not under any time pressure. So we can introduce a new organization, and all the changes, they will be done gradually over a number of years. Whereas in the case of CETA, because that was the first step towards a privatization, changes needed to take place much faster. So I think this is a vital difference. I mean, we don't intend to privatize the postal services, but we do intend to make them more efficient.
But surely if you're going to, down the line sometime, get stakeholders to buy shares, that's privatisation.
We don't have any plans for this, at least for the near future.
So what's the first step?
The first step is to form a private company, utilize the existing personnel that they will offer services to the new company. It doesn't mean that it will be all the employees, but it will be from existing employees, and gradually to decrease the number of employees at the new company, and also employ people through the private sector with different skills that we need to have at this new company.
Now, I read reports that you're looking at not even getting the bill to Parliament before 2017. Do you think that MPs are going to look favourably upon this? They've not been very keen on any of the other plans that have been given to them.
I think that if MPs care about the future of the postal services in Cyprus, they will approve the bill.
That is Marios Dimitriadis, our Transport and Communications Minister, talking about plans to redefine and upgrade our postal services.
Keep up to date with events in Cyprus and around the world. with the Cyprus News Digest.
The devastating earthquake that struck central Italy last week has been very much in the news. We've heard about the casualties, we've seen the total devastation of the beautiful medieval hamlets and villages in the area that was the epicentre of the quake. Joining us on the programme this week is Italy's ambassador to Cyprus, Guido Cerboni. Guido, first of all, obviously a tragedy in human terms, but I asked you to join me on the programme to talk now about, if you like, the clean-up and Italy's plans for these magnificent medieval villages. Are you going to restore them?
Definitely, yes. This is a commitment already clearly taken by our government because the cultural values of these villages, it's known all over the world. And also for the inhabitants, what they want is to have back their houses in the old style, to have back their village in the old style, no new towns. Of course, this is a challenging task. You can imagine all the debris. It has been like complete devastation, like where if these villages were bombed. I think everybody has seen on TV the images of this devastation. But our intention is to recover all the materials, so the stones, all the pieces that will allow us to rebuild not only the major buildings of these villages, the church and all the historical buildings, but also the houses themselves, because the beauty of these villages was their medieval character. That incredibly had survived over the centuries.
Well, I was going to ask you that. It is incredible, isn't it, considering that Italy is quite prone to earthquakes along its backbone, as we call it. But those villages have survived literally centuries. And one sort of wonders how they managed to survive all the earthquakes of the past. And was it simply the magnitude of this one? Or do you think that previous earthquakes over the years may have weakened those structures somewhat?
Well, I think both factors that you mentioned. On one hand, maybe the previous earthquakes had already weakened certain structures. But we have to consider that this last earthquake has been particularly strong, 6.2 of the Richter scale.
And it was shallow, wasn't it? But so the effect was much greater.
It was much greater because there were several shocks with different models. I mean, so the second one was particularly terrible. And so that's why maybe they had managed to survive the other earthquakes in their history. This area, as you said, is particularly sensible from the seismic point of view. They had earthquakes since the Middle Ages, actually, and through the Renaissance period, I mean, in the 17th century until today. But yes, they had managed to survive. Of course, also the houses had been now and then restored, rebuilt, but preserving the character of the village. And that's why our intention is to follow this path, to preserve.
It's going to be a very long, drawn-out process because there'll be a lot of clearing up to do before you can even consider starting. Have you any idea how long it will take, and where will the money come from?
Well, good question. I mean, it will take years. Of course, it's not something that we can do in a short delay. The money, we shall see. I mean, we count, of course, also on the solidarity of our friends all over the world. I mean, many people was had been touring these places for years. Many had also bought houses there, also foreigners to spend their vacation there. And of course, we count also on the understanding of the European Union, and in particular, not to consider the investment in the restoration works as part of the calculations for the stability, growth, and so on. So these is a challenging task, but we have to do it. This is the wish of the people, and they really already expressed the intention not to move, not to leave the land, to stay there, and not in new towns or something maybe very modern, very updated from the technological point of view, but to have
to keep the character
of the village. Yes, of course, in safety, but to keep the character of the village.
Can you tell us a little bit about the history of these villages? Are they renowned particularly for anything apart from their aesthetic qualities and the beauty of these lovely tiny streets and those buildings? I mean, are there any stories you can share with us about these particular areas?
Well, not probably, but what I can tell you is that Amatrice was considered one of the most beautiful historical boroughs in Italy. And these kind of villages of boroughs, especially from the Middle Age, are scattered especially along the Apennines, which is the backbone of Italy. I mean, and because they were the safest places compared with the lowlands where invaders could arrive. And usually you find in these mountainous landscapes small jewels, small villages with their church rich of piece of art, which is incredible.
And those, of course, need to be found and restored as well, I suppose.
Yes, indeed. Yes, indeed.
Can we finish with the practicalities of now? We've seen pictures on the television of blankets, duvets, pillows, tents, nappies, all the usual things that people whose homes and shops have been destroyed can't really live without. So is there an appeal going on at the moment in Italy? What can people do to help in terms of the people who are now probably in tents and will be, I gather, for some time? What can people do? Is there an appeal? Can they send money? Do you want goods? Do you need volunteers?
Well, thank you. This gives me, first of all, the opportunity to thank again the Cypriot government, because since the first hours they offered us to send a special team in search and rescue in these cases, specialized for earthquake consequences. But we manage. I mean, for the time being, we are managing the situation with our Department for the Civil Protection, which is really well advanced, and also with the help of the army, with the firemen, the forestry police. So all the state bodies had been mobilized to intervene on the ground. And actually we have preferred for the time being to avoid to have a congestion of people arriving from abroad. Also because the roads are not so large. I mean, the communication links are difficult, so and they need to be kept open. So for the time being, we are managed, and we intend to go on by our own means. But of course, in perspective, we need support, the help of the international community. So we are going to publish some useful numbers with bank accounts where donations might be conveyed, and of course they are open to everybody. Usually are current accounts of the regions involved. I mean, the region of Lazio, Umbria, Marche, So this we shall put it also this information on our website. I mean of the embassy.
Of the embassy. So if people Google Italian embassy in Nicosia, the
Yes.
details will be there for them.
Yes.
Very best of luck with the clear up. I think a lot of people have been quite shocked by the extent of the devastation.
Thank you, Rosie.
Talking to His Excellency Guido Gerboni, the Italian ambassador to Nicosia, about the recent earthquake in Italy.
You can subscribe to the Cyprus News Digest on iTunes for free and get the program downloaded to your phone or tablet so you can listen anytime, anywhere.
The International Conference Centre in Nicosia is going to be awash with people this weekend. At least 8,000 are expected tomorrow for the first day of the third Comic Con festival. It's an annual event now and it's getting bigger by the year. Joining us are two of the organisers, Peter Vass and Nick Aristides. Nick, let's start with you. How did you get involved in organising this? Because I understand you're an accountant.
The first year, 3 years ago, they approached me and they said that we want to do a Comic Con in Cyprus, and I really liked the idea, so I offered any help they wanted. Started off with accounting, and then I started picking more jobs along the way because they needed more help. Because thankfully it grew bigger.
Peter, there are I think about 10 of you, and you are all volunteers. So tell us how, on that first year, you put together your team and how it's grown since then.
So in the first year, there weren't all 10 of us. The all 10 were involved in some aspect still. That team just keeps on growing year on year. So it's a mixture of friends and people we've met along the way, but we all get on really well. There's a really good relationship between us, and even though it is really a full-time job on a volunteer basis, it's so rewarding at the end of the day.
So for people who aren't familiar with it, what is Comic Con?
So Comic Con is, it's a global.
It's every country has one sort of Comic Con yearly.
The purest Comic Con was literally for comic books, the actual celebrating illustration and writing in comic book style. But since then, it's kind of expanded. Yeah,
we added video games and movies, and so we can attract. There'll be more people that want to, more interesting, for a broader spectrum of people.
There's Japanese pop culture, and then people started dressing up in strange outfits, and we started giving them prizes for some reason. And the outfits became better and better every year, and suddenly Comic Con has become a very general celebration of pop culture.
And tell us about the costumes, because I think you've now got a qualification round at the weekend for a European and then a world, possibly, competition.
That's correct. We actually kicked off cosplay in Cyprus way back in 2010 and have slowly been scaling it up since then. When Comic Con started, we started with our own contest with very nice prizes from our sponsors, but since then we've grown every year. We've had more and more people take part, and finally we were accepted by Euro Cosplay, which is organised by the London Comic Con, to organise a qualifier in Cyprus to send a Cypriot qualifier to London to participate. If they win the European event in London at the end of October, they could be on a world stage in Tokyo.
So it's big stuff in a way, isn't it? How long do people take to make their costumes? What sort of costumes do you get?
We get costumes from different and everything. From movies, from anime, from comics, and usually the fully handmade can take up from 6 months up to a year, depending on how big they want to make it or how detailed they want to make it.
It's not even just fabrics. One of the first year's winner actually built a full Iron Man suit. Full armor with lasers and LEDs and all sorts of electronics inside. So and people build these massive weapons as well, like fake swords and staffs, and it's a full spectrum of accessories.
It seems a little strange to me that here we have grown-ups going back to their childhood for 2 days at the weekend. Is that a fair way of sort of putting it?
Yep.
Many of us, yes.
Yep.
It's the nostalgia from our childhoods, remembering the stories that inspired us and the characters. But the age groups that attend Comic Cons it's such a wide age group. I mean, you got from very young children, from toddlers, all the way through to the oldest people. I mean, 65 plus age group is also quite big.
And are you aware of a particular character that appeals to the broadest sector of the people who visit?
I mean, comic book heroes, Western comic book heroes
Yeah.
like Spider-Man, Batman, always big.
Yeah.
In Cyprus, in the 80s and 90s, on antenna television, they were actually airing 2 Japanese cartoons, and those stuck with many people, especially from our age group, Dragon Ball and Sailor Moon.
Yeah.
So many people try and come from those series as well.
Every time we actually put the theme song from those animes, people start singing with us. So it's a great fun.
So it is a trip back in time to the happy days of one's childhood.
Yeah.
But let's talk as well about how it's grown in terms of the special guests you invite to attend, because this year I think you've got something like 15, including somebody that anybody who's watched the Game of Thrones is very much going to want to meet, who's going to do a question and answer session. So tell us about the international stars.
Well, first year we started with one special artist.
Neil Gibson,
Neil Gibson.
from T-Pub Comics in the UK, and actually came over there.
Yeah, he came over. He loved the Comic Con, so he said that he will be here next year as well. So second year he came, and we also got a different artist from Greece, and they really loved it as well. So they said count us in for the third year. But this year we actually managed to get like 19 special guests.
It's 15 to 20 what you consider special guests, and
Yeah.
in the second year we diversified away from artists, and we actually brought our first actor as well, Charalambous of Cypriot heritage, who also acted in Game of Thrones. Since the Cypriot public loves Game of Thrones, we went with that again this year. We have Grand Maester Pycelle from Game of Thrones, who's acted by Julian Wyatt Glover, long-standing, very famous British actor. He's been in James Bond. He stood as Indiana Jones's nemesis in The Last Crusade. He's been in Star Wars as Darth Vader's general. He's incredible. And he's also starred in Doctor Who. There's nothing that he hasn't been in, it seems, when you look at his repertoire. But along with that, we kept diversifying. We have a cosplay guest this year, a professional costumer, who will be coming to do stage shows and to judge our contest. And also another actor, George Georgiou, again of London Cypriot, and again from Game of Thrones. So we're trying to celebrate local talent, Cypriot talent, as well as international talent.
Yeah.
So it's getting bigger, it's getting better every year, and the age range, I think, as you said, is diversifying. If you're talking to somebody who says, "What's Comic-Con? Why should I go to that?" what would you tell them?
It's the most colourful event of the year. It would be a shame if you didn't come and try it out. And honestly, I would challenge anyone to come and then turn around and tell us that they didn't find something to enjoy. At least one little thing.
Yeah.
Because it's so diverse. There's something for everyone.
So where and when and how much?
So you can find us Saturday and Sunday, 3rd and 4th of September. On Saturday we're open from 10 until 7 p.m. On Sunday we're open from 10 until 8 p.m. It's happening at the Philoxenia Conference Centre in Nicosia, Cyprus. And tickets are just €3 for one day and €5 for a weekend pass.
And can you buy them on the door, or do you need to get them in advance?
You can buy them on the door. We do have online sales, but at this stage it's best to get them at the door.
And if people want to find out more, a website, a Facebook group, where can they sort of see what's planned? Because you've got all these different stalls and different people, but people may want to actually go there for specific events like the costume thing or the question and answer with Julian Glover.
So actually 2 of our team members are full-time bloggers, and we have hundreds of articles about everything going on. If you Google for Cyprus Comic Con, or you search for us on Facebook, Cyprus Comic Con again, you'll find us, and on our website you'll find a whole host of information, including floor plan, schedule, and everything in between.
So there you are, Cyprus Comic Con 2016. It's happening tomorrow and on Sunday at the Philoxenia Conference Centre in Nicosia. Well, that about wraps up this edition of the Cyprus News Digest. Many thanks for your company. Hope you'll join me next week. Till we meet again, take care and God bless. Bye-bye now.